Hello you guys. Last week I posted a video of me quitting my job out of nowhere without a plan really, and I was expressing how I felt, kind of like in limbo. What do I do next? Where do I go? She don't know. Not her going with the flow. I got so much support from you guys. Like, you guys left a lot of comments about your past experience with toxic jobs. I also got a lot of support from like coworkers who quit, who want to quit, and old bosses. And in today's video, I wanted to go in as to like why I decided to just up and leave. Before we get into anything, I will be using the word allegedly a lot because I'm not trying to get sued. And I do have my notebook here because your girl rambles and I just have so much going on up here that I need to stay on track. I started working at this place and we're gonna call it the Underground. Originally, I wanted to call it Hell's Kitchen, but like I didn't want Gordon Ramsay to sue me for the coins that I don't have. So we're gonna call it the Underground because it reminds me of hell and hell is underground. So you get the gist of it. To set the scene, the mood, the vibe of this place. It's very much a place where like rich suburban moms go to and like order a Caesar salad that they can make at home for like 15 bucks and pay 12 bucks for like a sip of rosé that they could easily buy a whole bottle at their local liquor and wine store. It's also like a place like businessmen go to. It's like in an affluent area. You get a lot of like bougie people, you know, that just come in and like know people and stuff like that. That kind of vibe. I started working there May 23rd, 2017, literally a month and 8 days after I got married. I came to work here because the place that Dan and I worked together at before had shut down. So it was just like, I needed a job fast and this was the best place that I heard where people make a lot of money. And like I had bills, I had stuff to pay for. She was newly married. I remember actually going in for orientation and I actually distinctly remember the trainer telling us history on the Underground and all that stuff, and I remember her saying, and it stuck with me because when I tell you like the BS, I remember her saying, although the Underground is a part of a corporate company, we run like a family diner, which means like your problems are our problems. When you walk through that door, we care about you. We want you to feel good coming to work. And for some reason, when corporate companies say that, it just doesn't sit right with me. It's giving very performative. It's giving corporate companies during Pride Month putting up a rainbow flag on their website and then taking it down as soon as Pride Month is over and they're no longer inclusive. That's what it gives. And essentially, that's what this place was. The lack of diversity was, I want to say astonishing, but no, it's corporate America. It's corporate America. If you had any ounce of natural melanin in you, it's just like you straight up didn't belong. Let me just say, I showed up to my interview with straight hair and I showed up at my training with braids. Some would say that is manipulation. I like to say it was strategic, okay? You gotta do what you gotta do to get the job. Is it sad that I have to think that way, especially as a heavily melanated woman? Like, yeah, it is. But unfortunately, that's my reality, and that's the reality of a lot of people of color and a lot of Black women. After, you know, being here for a little bit, I started to feel very uncomfortable, not just because of the lack of diversity, but like I could see there was a lot of problems at the Underground. And I remember feeling so uncomfortable, feeling so unwelcomed. It's just the vibes, the energy, it was just so, when I tell you it was off, it was just, it didn't sit right with my spirits. Before coming into every shift, like I would legitimately sit in my car and cry because I was just so anxious, like getting into work and like just being there with some of the guests and like working with some people. And it was just like a really intense place for no reason. For no reason. Even though I was like slugging out the tears in my car, like as soon as I got into work, like I kind of had a no-nonsense demeanor about me, like because I had seen a lot of like the problematic things that were going on, and I would see like people getting getting disrespected, whether it was by other coworkers, guests, or management or whatever, I just developed a don't fuck with me demeanor. Like, I'm here to do my job and go home. Like, I mean, your girl is funny and like I would kiki and laugh with people, but at the end of the day, I don't like being disrespected. I'm not going to disrespect other people. I'm here to do my job, get my money, and roll out and go home to my husband and forget the day that I had. So I would keep my head down, do my work. I didn't want to be a problem child for management. Because of my work ethic and I think who I was as a person there, I quickly became management's favorite, and I can say that because I had some sort of like a close relationship with some of the managers. I'm not even gonna speak on it. This really sucks to say, but like when certain issues would come up, like if it didn't pertain to me, I would look the other way because, and not to make this an issue of like race, but it's, you know, unfortunately my reality and the reality of a lot of other people of color. Like when people of color come forward and speak about things and they feel a certain way about being discriminated or things being unfair and just inappropriate, we're seen a certain way. And I can easily relate that to like when women come forward and bring up an issue with like SA or SH, like you can kind of like, I'm not gonna say the words because YouTube, the algorithm be like listening to everything. But when women come forward about, you know, being uncomfortable in a certain way in a workplace, like how often are those complaints taken seriously? Now imagine that, but also for people of color. It's unfortunate, and it's just like when certain things would happen, I would kind of like keep my head down and look the other way because I saw what would happen to those people who spoke up and they were treated in a passive aggressive way and like disrespected, and I just was not here for that. Fast forward a couple of years at the underground. I had taken a month off of work. I was in Serbia, you know, living my life, you know, booty getting juicy from all the sarma, gibonica, all that good food that I was eating, and just like the high off of being like around family that I love and culture and just the energy, all that stuff. I was having a great time and I dreaded going back to work. I was just like, oh, I gotta go in this ghetto, ratchet, toxic place and act like I like my job. And so I remember the day that I came back to work, an incident happened which involved me. I remember coming into my evening shift, you know, brunch was transitioning into dinner, so things were crazy, it was hectic, you know, people were running around not knowing what their tables were, the kitchen was, you know, changing out all the stuff for like the dinner prep, and all these things were happening. There were tables still coming in and sitting down in the transitional period, and I remember a table sitting down, right? It's table 23. That's what we're gonna call. It was a really tall white male and his daughter. And I remember thinking, oh, let me go water them because we're in a crazy period, and then let the server know like she just got sat, you know, help other people while they're figuring their shit out. So I go water the table, and I'm like, hey, is there anything I can get for you guys? And this man like looks up at me with like kind of a staying attitude, and he was just like, no, we're still looking over the menu. And I was like, okay. I'm gonna let this one slide. I'm gonna let this one go. I just walked away from the table and I went up to the server that had that table, you know, for the brunch shift, and I was like, hey, you just got sat, I watered them for you, like, did you want to take them or should I take them? And she was like, oh, I haven't been cut yet, so like I'll take the table. And I was like, cool. So I got my section for like the evening shift, going around to my tables, having a good time, doing my job, you know, trying to make this money so I can bounce and go home. I'm making my rounds around the tables, and I noticed the table hasn't been touched. So I go up to her and I'm like, hey, have you gone to your table yet? And she's like, oh no, I realized I was cut, so you can take the table. So I'm like, okay, cool. As I'm making my way to table 23, that man at that table was like coming towards me. So I waited till he got to me, and yo, this man literally came up to me and was like, is there something wrong with us as a people? And I was like, excuse me? I was genuinely perplexed. Like, I was just like, confusion. So he asked me again, and he's like, is there something wrong with us as a people? And I was like, no, I'm confused. And he's like, we've been sitting there for a very long time. You haven't come and taken our order. I was in your server, I was watering the table, but you know, we were in transition, and me and the server that was supposed to have him prior were, you know, telling him like, oh yeah, like they didn't let us know who was assigned to the table, so there was a bit of a confusion. And he was like, no, 2 weeks ago I came here and you, pointing at me, were serving me and you had the same attitude and you were just so rude. And I literally was like, sir, I was in Europe 2 weeks ago, so you're referring to another server. And he just kept going on about it. Like, he just kept going on and on about it. He was like, is there something wrong with us as a people, blah. And I didn't understand what he was saying until I realized he meant, was there something wrong with them as like white people? Which, like, no, there isn't. There's something wrong with you as a person, but not because of the color of your skin. I don't operate that way. So anyways, he kept going on and on and on, and I was just like, sir, I don't argue with guests. I'm gonna go get a manager. And he kept talking and I was like, sir, I don't argue with guests. I'm gonna get a manager. And he kept going and I was like, sir, I don't argue with guests. I'm gonna get a manager. And other people were witnessing his outlandish behavior. And so he went to the host stand to talk to the hostess. And then I was explaining to a manager like what was going on and shit like that. And they decided to get him a new server. I'm at the micro station, you know, putting in food and stuff for like my other tables. And the server that was supposed to have them prior came up to me and was like, you wouldn't believe what he said to the hostess. And I was like, what? Apparently, he didn't want to be served by a black server. What in the 1805 Underground Railroad is going on here? I was so uncomfortable. I was annoyed. I was, the feeling of violence has never come so quick in my life until that moment. I knew that there was no point in saying anything because a manager actually confirmed that they knew that he said this, and they gave him another server who was black, and she is lighter in complexion, and he had no problem with her. And this is not her fault, by the way. I feel just as bad for her as I felt in that moment for myself, because I would have been so uncomfortable. Because they made him feel comfortable enough to like stay there and enjoy his meal, digest his meal, and have an experience at the underground, I was like, oh, the blatant disrespect is too much for me and my soul. It really was. Like, I was shocked and the server was shocked. People in neighboring restaurants heard about this and they were equally disgusted that this person was allowed to be there, was allowed to dine in. And mind you, this man was literally going around to every manager that they saw and was telling him, oh, like, this new server is great, like, she's amazing, she's a breath of fresh air. And like, literally they're like, y'all just gonna let this man? Oh, so y'all just don't give a fuck. Got it. Not only did this man confuse me with another server, which there was another server who looked similar to me at the time. Not only did they confuse me with another server, they allowed this moron dine in there. So it was just very traumatic. It was just so violating in so many ways. And it just sucked because it's like I worked so hard to be disrespected like this. Fast forward a little bit of time ahead. So Miss Rona has arrived. She has made her debut, and we're at the the beginning of the pandemic stages. At this point, we were under new management. We had shut down, and although it was like a really scary period with the pandemic and just like really uncertain times, and like I didn't know where I was going, and there were so many frustrations and so much anxiety, not being at this job, I was so happy not to be there. Oh my god, like it just felt so good not being there. It's like, I couldn't even describe it. A breath of fucking fresh air. And this is how I felt during a pandemic. That says a lot. A couple of months later, I received a call in which like restaurants were opening back up and all that stuff, and they were inviting me back to work. And when I tell you, I felt like there was a pit in my stomach. Like, you know when you get so anxious and so nervous and you feel sickly, like you're just like about to get the runs? Like, that's how I felt. Oh my god, I don't want to go back. And at this point in time, Dan and I were looking at houses. One thing about looking at houses is that you have to have consistent income. Especially during the time of the pandemic, like banks and lenders were like combing through your finances, and we were told that it would look much better if we both, you know, stick with our current places of employment, just so that, you know, getting a mortgage would be much easier, would go a lot smoother. When this horrific, horrible, horrendous place invited me back, like I had no choice. I had to go back. So unfortunately, I went back, and oh my god, child. When I tell you this place was a hot mess, when I tell you it was unsanitary, when I tell you it was unorganized, disheveled, trash. This place looked like trash. Like, it just, the fruit flies, the lack of work, it just was a hot mess. And I remember going back because we had new management. There was a new like interim general manager there. We're gonna call him Mike. I remember going in and him just giving me the lay of the land, what's going on, and he's like, yeah, you know, we're opening up, and he was just, you know, giving me like the sanitary instructions of like the restaurant during, you know, Rona. And so he was telling me, yeah, we have these new like wet wipes that are COVID friendly, and it's like, you know, good for the optics so the guests feel at ease. And I'm just like, for the optics, sir, shouldn't we be actually like be clean because we're in the middle of a pandemic that's global and people are actually, you know, dying from this? Not worried about optics, but actuality, you know? I remember during this time, we would also work like long hours. I'm talking about 13-hour shifts with barely any breaks and everything. And oh, I remember working in the heat. Girl, I remember like being drenched in sweat. Like, I had boob sweat. I had fucking boob sweat. And I really don't have much going on up here, which, you know what? I'm fine with. My jeans were like melted into my skin, the amount of sweat, oh my god, it was horrific. And then dealing with people who were not understanding that we were short-staffed, that we were overworked, oh my days. If there was ever a time to get violent in the restaurant industry and just make a guest in the face, it would have been during the height of the panini press. I swear, people are just, I can make a whole other video about types of people that go out to eat just in general. After a while, like, the lot of us were just fed up with the working conditions and being treated poorly. Like, Mike was a horrible general manager, the lack of leadership skills, the lack of restaurant knowledge. Like, if anything, he was more so of a financial advisor, and he made this abundantly clear when he would always mention numbers and everything. And like, that's the thing, like, this place, the Underground, stressed numbers above all else. Like, they didn't care about anything else as long as they were making money. I feel like corporate companies should make their slogan like, if it ain't green, it don't mean a thing. Trademark pending. Honestly, that's all they cared about. And like, I remember him specifically saying to another server who literally was taking a water break that like, we didn't matter, the guests did. And it's just like, even then, the guests didn't matter. He was more worried about the money that the guests were bringing in. We were so fucking fed up. Like, the group of us like got together, banded, and wrote an email, you know, discussing the horrible working conditions, how we were being treated, the fact that we weren't being cared for, the lack of sanitary and safety going on in the workplace. And we sent it to corporate. And so after we sent that out, there was a meeting set in place for just like a corporate manager and Mike's Dusty behind and other managers to like sit with the employees who had issues within the workplace. And we all came together, sat down, and had a conversation essentially about everything that was going on. The first 15 minutes, Mike literally got up and read from his little paper that he typed up. Basically excuses, talking about nothing, trying to justify, you know, our grievances and shit like that. Finally, when we were able to speak, we got into the issues of the place about like working long hours, just being overworked and not really being taken care of. And there was another corporate manager there. We're gonna name him Chad. We're gonna name him Chad. I don't know why. but that's just like such a frat boy name. And he definitely gives frat boy behavior. And yeah, during the meeting there was a corporate manager. We're gonna name him Chad, which is like a frat boy name, and he gives off frat boy vibes. Chad, picture an older male, maybe 50s, maybe 60s, I don't know. He's dressed like he's going through a middle life crisis, or he is making a return with his local band. He wears like skinny jeans, he spikes up his hair, he just thinks he's like cool. Am I being shady? I think it's very accurate. Like, yeah. Chad, a corporate manager, was there basically listening to everything, and like we were all talking about the things that were bothering us. I specifically brought up how this place wasn't diverse or melanin friendly. I don't want to say the R word because again, the YouTube algorithm be listening. I just brought up, you know, being discriminated against, and like there was another recent incident where Mike, the manager, was microaggressive towards a guest, and there's literally like a whole Yelp review about that. And like how he was inappropriate when it came to like people of color, not just black people, but like the Latino Hispanic community. There was also another incident with a manager and I who told me to read up on my history, because apparently indentured servitude was equatable, if not worse, than slavery. Which, like, if that's what you think, I was just bringing up issues that, you know, made me feel uncomfortable and unsafe in the work environment. And did I pop off? I absolutely did, with all due respect. You know, I just was not holding back, and like at this point I was very frustrated, and when I'm frustrated I cry out of anger. And it's just like everything that I had felt up until that moment came out. And this man in his skinny jeans and spiky hair sat there and said, you know what, like, I don't appreciate being attacked, and but he made it about himself. The fragility, the fragility of it all just made me sick. So you're an idiot who doesn't get the concept of discrimination, and you're making it about yourself. Wow. Wow. The meeting went on, and it was just like pointless. It was like two men sitting there gaslighting us about the issues, and it got nowhere. After this group meeting, he had private meetings with other employees and me as well, and honestly it was a waste of my time. And he strategically had a meeting with me last because he didn't want to sit there and deal with it. Let's be honest. Like, he literally, as soon as we sat down to have our private meeting, he was like, I have less than 15 minutes to talk about, you know, the issue, but he wanted to hear more about what was going on. And so like I told him, and this man was like, you know, like during that meeting I didn't appreciate how some people were expressing their feelings. And he was like, oh, not you, but like other people. Mind you, this man had made the same remark about me to other employees already, about how he didn't appreciate how I was like attacking him. So I was like, child, the passive aggressiveness, I despise, I abhor, I hate. A mí no me gusta. I do not like when people are passive aggressive. If you're gonna say something, say it with your chest so we can have a conversation like full-grown adults. And so he was just being passive aggressive, and then gave me a spiel about how he doesn't see color, and like, how could he be not melanin friendly? How can he discriminate? He works in an environment with, you know, other people of color. And it's just like, it was giving very much, my best friend is black, how can I be racist? And he was just like, I want people to be happy here, come to work. Like, I don't want to come to work unhappy. Like, that would suck. And I called him out on his BS, and I was like, listen, this is a corporate company. It needs to make money. Like, happiness is not gonna pay the bills at the end of the day. And when I tell you, this man looked so uncomfortable and so upset that I called him out. And like, he was just so like passive. Like, there were points where he was looking at his phone. Like, sir, if you didn't want to take this meeting with me, don't waste my time. Don't try to stay here and make me feel good and save face for like, you know, corporate, whatever. And so he was like, towards the end, like, he was like, I'm really sorry that you went through all that. And it was just him saying sorry. Like, it was really hard for him. It was really hard for him to say, like, I'm sorry you went through all that. And he was like, I'm gonna take these notes that I took down, because he was taking notes, you know, from the meeting. He was like, I'm gonna take these notes, I'm gonna take them back to corporate. And he was like, you know, I wish I could give you a hug right now, but you know, with Rona going around, I was like, I'm not a hugger. I'm not a hugger, so we're good. I am telling you that I'm facing discrimination and I'm very uncomfortable and feel unsafe in the workplace, and the only thing that you can offer me, Chad, is a hug. I don't even want you breathing the same air as me. You think I want a hug? The lack of common sense as human beings. After that meeting happened, something within me clicked, and I was just like, so from then on, I just decided to take notes on incidents when they would happen, times and days and shit like that. And Chad, being, you know, the corporate regional manager of the Underground, he would fly back and forth to this restaurant and other restaurants as well. And when he was like at the Underground and he saw me, he would be so passive aggressive and inappropriate, like in front of other employees who also witnessed his behavior. He never got back to me. He never got back to me about that meeting, about anything that I said. And I'm pretty fucking sure he never took those notes to corporate. And allegedly, things like that kept happening at the Underground. And again, like, I would just take notes, you know? Like, I would literally take notes in my phone of like incidents that would happen, things I would hear, just for my own peace of mind, just in case, you know, a little something needed to happen. Like, I had my receipts. After a while, we got new management and I felt like things got a little better, and by a little bit, maybe by a microscopic amount. We got a new manager who I felt like genuinely cared about his employees and the company as a whole. I felt a little safer. Things still didn't get better. There were incidents where people were like discriminatory, like there were regulars that came in there that were discriminatory and they were still allowed to eat there. Like, it just, like, there was a manager, there's another manager, his name is Brad. We're gonna name him Brad because he's definitely a fucking frat bro. I think I got this job because my daddy knows somebody, and no, I can't get fired because I can do whatever I want because my daddy knows like the corporate head, so I can like work here. When I tell you useless, he's also the type of manager to allegedly sleep with employees more than once. Shit like that kept happening. And again, you're probably wondering, well, girl, like, why did you stay there? Again, I had bills to pay. We're still in the middle of whatever Rona is doing right now, and Dan and I were looking at a house. Thankfully, we got this beautiful home. We signed for it, we closed in it, I believe in like late August, and I finally can let go of this job. I took a month off in September because one, I thought we were going to Serbia, but that didn't happen. We ended up moving into our home and everything, and honestly, that month off made me realize like a lot of shit. It made me realize a lot of things. That one, I didn't want to be at my place of work, and two, I didn't have to be there anymore, and three, fuck them. Honestly, like, this place was so toxic that it was spilling into other areas of my life that the money was not worth it. It really wasn't. And like, there were nights where I would work a whole day and make like $600, or I would work one shift and make like 400 bucks. Like, that's the kind of money I was making. But at this point, it was not worth it. My safety was at risk, my sanity was at risk, my mental health, everything. I was just like, you know what? It's time for me to go. I decided, after living my best life and like seeing the joys of life, like, I literally felt like I could breathe easier. I felt like life was great. Life was so good that I wanted to cry. Like, I literally realized like I could not go back. Like, that place was just too much. It was holding me back, and honestly, there was nothing that was holding me there anymore. We already got our house, and I just decided to fucking quit. I basically sent in my letter of resignation, basically saying everything that I said in this video. Not only did I send it in to the head general manager at the time, which was, it wasn't Mike anymore. Mike had left at this point, thank God. I included, you know, corporate partners, Chad's boss, basically the people that needed to know what's up. And I just, you know, let the chips fall where they're made. Like, I literally was just honest about my experience and how uncomfortable it was. Did they respond? Yes. With a crock of bullshit, obviously, you know, being very like, we're really sorry about your experience. And I was just like, okay, clearly you guys don't care because there's a manager allegedly sleeping with employees and he's still employed there. So, and like, while I do understand that businesses have to make money, like, you can just as easily care about your employees while making money. I kind of felt like maybe it was just a me thing in the beginning when I quit, like maybe I'm the problem. But then after I quit, I was getting a lot of support from past employees, current employees. I spoke my truth, I said what I had to say, and I pieced the fuck out. And like, should I have, you know, let go and let God, you know, deal with it? Maybe, but God gave me free will. And who am I to deny the Lord of his doing?